Welcome to You the People. In this program, we will provide you with interviews and information from and about the people who affect your lives. Our program may include conversations with candidates, elected or appointed officials, town department heads, and more. We will delve into the kitchen table issues that make a difference in our towns and region. I'm your host, Julie Thompson. Let's get started. Welcome to You the People. It is 2025 and this will be our first edition this year. I'm pleased to welcome back, of course, State Rep Joan Meschino of the 3rd Plymouth District. Welcome.
Oh, it's always wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me in.
Lots to chat about.
Yes, my gosh, it's been super busy.
Yeah, and I haven't seen you since last October before the election. So you kicked off the new legislation cycle this January. So what does that entail? What does that mean?
So you run for election, you get reelected, and the first Wednesday of the new year, you get sworn in, which is a wonderful ceremony. And you take the oath of office, and the next day, everything begins. Yeah. So the first sort of process cycle thing of a new session is the bill filing. Collectively, we filed, I think it was over 6,800 bills, collectively, House and Senate members, which is an astonishing number, but a lot of interesting and good things, and then also a lot of our home rule petitions and things like that. So you will see that number grow. We have 2 weeks to file for what they refer to as a seasonably filed bill, which is just to say there's a deadline and it's timely filed. You really can file bills anytime, but they give priority to those that are timely filed under the rules.
So if you House and Senate filed 6,800 plus or minus bills, those were created last session, correct? I mean, you didn't make them up in a week.
Oh, we're always prepared. You know me.
Yeah.
Girl with a plan.
Yeah.
So, in fact, there are a lot of refiled bills.
Yes.
And so you see things that make it through the process or were filed for the first time, and they sort of work their way through. Because don't forget, it has to be timely, it has to be relevant, it has to be well vetted. And we're updating Mass General laws, and that should be an intentional and thoughtful process.
Absolutely.
So what'll happen is all of the committees will be created, and then all of these bills will be assigned to a committee, and every bill gets a hearing.
Right.
And so that's, like I said, an intentional, sometimes laborsome process, but it's exciting. And so I think we got on file something like 30 bills.
Okay.
And we can talk about those more later.
Okay.
But the important thing is that it's like an intense period of time where people are either refiling from last year and or they are drafting new. And those of us that are coming back in after re-election, we already have a pretty good idea of what we're filing, and we had already been working on it. So most of our bills were actually ready to just hit file. Although we did actually take on a couple of new things that we can talk about later.
We can talk about that.
And we get help filing those through House Counsel. Okay,
excellent. So looking over the past year, what are you most proud of the accomplishments that you actually did make?
So I think the biggest, most impactful one was our permanent supportive housing. The governor actually included in her Affordable Homes Act, that big $5.4 billion spending bill, she included a number of policy priorities in there, and one of them was from my permanent supportive housing bill. And what it does is it creates a flex pool fund, and it's just a different way of procuring services. So when you are trying to get people out of shelter and off the streets, housing, stable housing is one of those solutions. But a lot of times people don't always succeed in those spots. They struggle a little bit because they're medically complex and there's a lot going on with them. And so what we do is we put together just a little support services. It's a modicum, and it's everything that we already do. It doesn't cost a penny more. It's just a different way of bringing it together to provide those services. So you think about Father Bill's is probably the best example close by, and the way that they really try to move people from shelter into the supportive housing. And if you go and tour their new facility over in Quincy, and now there's one down in Taunton as well. What they do is they actually have like a little Humana Healthcare. Is right there on site. You know, they have people helping you figure out how to do your finances and get a checkbook. And don't forget, you know, a lot of these people that are sort of chronically in and out of shelter, they're probably, you know, say a mom with children with disabilities, or they have mental health issues, or they're on recovery, road to recovery, or a veteran with PTSD. In fact, we have a program like that here in Hingham. So so it really is just sort of instead of waiting to let people fail, it's really just a step back from that, really helping people succeed. So that's probably the thing that's probably most impactful and that I'm most proud of.
Okay, so on that housing front, what about the whole affordable housing, not including the population you just talked about?
Yeah, so there's ranges of affordable housing. So for capital A affordable housing, technical term, 80% of area median income, you know, just people who can't quite make that market rates. That's what, when we say affordable housing, that's what we're really talking about. And listen, I don't need to tell anyone here, the prices are just skyrocketing through the roof. Nobody can afford it.
No, and the interest rates too.
And the interest rates is terrible.
It's a lose-lose.
So when we're talking about, say, rental properties and things like that, it really becomes very important. And Hingham is such a leader in this regard. They really put their plan in place. It was impressive to watch. You know, they built out, you know, places over, is that Beale Street that comes in? And of course, right next to sort of the intermodal center and the bus and the ferry and all of shopping. And it really, you know, these were smart, strategic things, and we need to do more of that kind of building.
Absolutely.
That's what we really need to be doing, more of that. But we also need to preserve it and make sure that these property owners are honoring the agreements that they made with the communities, and that's not happening in Cohasset right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we're focused.
I'm sure you're on it.
We're on it. We're focused on that. I think trying to figure out solutions.
Yeah. Was there anything last year that you did not get across the finish line, that you really had wanted to?
There's a couple of things, and of course, one of our favorites that we talk about a lot is we didn't quite get the Community Media Center bill across. But I don't want people to be discouraged, because...
So for anyone who doesn't understand that, let's just a real brief recap that community media centers like Harbor Media here and all the local community media centers throughout the state.
PEG access.
PEG access, as you want to call them. Public Education and Government Access Television, which is kind of old Wayne's World way to think of it. They're funded by a very old and archaic law from 1982, the cable.
Yes,
the cable
franchise laws.
Which takes a percentage of people's cable bills and gives it to these centers to do what we do. Now, the more people that have cut the cord and that funding has gone down, and more people are going into streaming, and that funding doesn't exist.
That's right.
For these types of environments.
Correct.
So that's what the streaming bill, as you called it, is to be. You have worked on this for years.
So
where are we?
So this is so in fact this is the second time we filed the second time we filed it, and we actually worked on the language through the committee and shaped a new bill. But it was so late in the session last year that we just didn't have a time to really figure out a path to the floor. And of course, it's just a solo bill. It's like it's an impactful one, but it's small. It's a single bill, and you know, at that point, they're shaping these larger bills, and trying to, part of the art of it is trying to figure out a way to get it to the floor. And as I said, there's 6,800 bills. It's highly competitive. There's a lot of needs and a lot of things. So this year we refiled the bill as the committee worked it out, as with the committee's language. So what we're hoping is that it'll get assigned to that same committee. I already know it's the same chair. I've already had the conversation, and everyone's excited to move this one forward, because what it does is it really creates that steady stream that you can rely on for revenue source.
And the revenue would be the same fee on
it's all the
streaming
same
services as people pay on that have cable.
Think of it this way.
Do people pay it or the streaming companies pay it?
Well, ultimately, everything gets passed through to people.
To the consumer.
So everything, right through. So it's on the consumer, but it was already on it's always been on the consumer
Anyway,
in this way. And I think we can see what the benefit of spending that money and the resources that we've created with it is very valuable. And I, obviously, if people are watching now, you value, your pig channel. But I think that all we're really doing is saying technology evolves. People follow new and exciting and interesting ways to enjoy their entertainment media. And so we're just following the consumer.
Right.
Now, it's important that we call it a fee and not a tax.
Right.
For the sole purpose that we're trying to create a nexus with an important public purpose. And I know that sounds like, double speak, but it's important because if it's a tax, it goes into the general fund. And then that's just about paying more for nothing. If it's a fee, then I can tie it to the work that you do here at Harbor Media, and I can make sure that that revenue stream comes right in here for that important public purpose.
Almost like an enterprise fund.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. That's a good way to think about it. And in fact, it comes in from the state and passes through much like an enterprise fund.
Exactly.
And you can only spend it for the purpose for which it was intended. That's why it's important.
Right. And this is a non-commercial entity that deals with public education and government programming.
Well, and don't forget,
local, regional.
If you're the town of Hull, that's a department, so it comes into the municipality and it follows whatever contractual arrangements that the municipality has with its community media center.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So more on that. Okay. You're always trying to work to adapt to your district at the moment and what your district needs. Do you have any legislation that you're really excited about, strictly about this district?
So the district is always the lens, right? It's representative government. So it's really the things that come up relative to the district that inspire me to file the bills that we do. One that's going to be important statewide, but I got involved because it's important to Hingham is drought management and how we manage private wells during drought on a regional basis. Right now it's a statewide basis, but I think we learned a lot over the past couple of years about how drought hits the state, and we just really need to be able to declare it locally, declare it regionally, and make sure that each municipal water district is handling it the same way. It's so infuriating to drive across town borders and be like, see that one town has, a huge priority for conservation and another doesn't, and watersheds flow. So it's just meant to be practical common sense and really give the town of Hingham, the Ware River water system, and others like that, the ability. So, when they brought it to me, when Mass Rivers brought it to me, I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else besides water that's specific to this district?
So we do a lot in terms of transportation as well. So those aren't legislative things. You have an ability to create good relationships and have broader relationships with these state agencies that intersect here with us. One of the big ones we've been having a lot of conversations around has been transportation. So everybody remembers when they tried to cut the ferries, and Hingham and Hull and Cohasset really came together and actually brought her across the South Shore. If truth be told, we had a lot of support from places like Norwell, other places that are
anyone
in
who uses the
Situate.
ferry.
Anybody who's drawing in on that. So we've been having ongoing, and I'm just really excited to report that the ferries are now their own department in the entity, and they've hired a terrific fellow who's really thinking about how to build, really a great water transportation system, for all of the coastal communities along the harbor. And they're thinking about it not as just transportation, but so we're looking ahead to Rev 250. How do you get all the people down here to enjoy all of the planning that's going on at the local level to celebrate Rev 250? That's a huge tourism.
Talk about Rev 250 for 1 second. What is it for anyone who doesn't know?
Sorry, acronym, I apologize. Revolution, it's this quincentennial, she's trying to test me. Quincentennial, I think. It's the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And obviously Massachusetts was front and center all you have to do is go to Lincoln Day and listen to all of the things that they really talk about in terms of the foundation of our country.
Right.
I mean, it was done here.
Right. So there'll be a lot of activities that draw people here from all over the world.
Yeah, and that's what we're hoping for. And that celebrates our community, but also is an economic opportunity for tourism. So we've been talking a lot to the MBTA about how we get people from the city of Boston, from Massport down here to spend their money and to spend time and to celebrate, the start of a revolution.
Without having to take their cars, because let's be efficient about this.
Well, and
move
people around in good ways. So, so we've been talking a lot about that. We've been talking a lot about the buses, right? Because it's got to be intermodal. You got to be able to get from the ferry down to the square or wherever else we're bringing people. And we've been starting to look at commuter rail too. Yeah,
because the whole transportation system really needs a bird's eye view. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces there that aren't working, or they don't work with each other. They don't work in conjunction.
They don't work in conjunction.
They're not on parallel tracks.
Right.
So the Hingham Historical Society, talking about the annual Lincoln Day celebration, what did that mean? What does that mean?
So the reason I referenced that was they had a wonderful speaker, and I do believe you taped it, so everyone can watch that on your streaming services. And it was Jonathan Lane, who is in charge of a lot of the planning for what they're referring to as Rev 250. And quite frankly, there's a lot of grant money that's going to flow from various agencies around celebrating this as well. So there'll be real opportunities. But what he was really talking about was, and I would encourage everyone to go watch it, about the innovation spirit and the resilience of the people who were leading at that time, and they just had to be brave and tackle. And then once you were actually into the full-blown Revolutionary War, who's at home and who is stepping up, and the women and the different voices and the different people who really had to step up in that moment. Right. It's fascinating, and it feels like it's a good time to celebrate a lot of that right now. The Constitution.
Let's segue into that. Let's talk about a country that is divided in a lot of ways right now. The election of last November was very close, and President Trump and his administration are now in charge, and it'll create some changes at the federal level, which will come down to the state level, which will come down to the local level. You see a lot of angst amongst people, a lot of fear, a lot of misinformation flowing all over the place.
Yep, people are very worried.
From both sides of the aisle, if we will. So what is your message to your constituents about take a deep breath and focus on what we do here?
So I think that's actually a really great way to say it. So we change governments. That's part of who we are, right? That is the core essence of the Constitution, and those elections. And so now we have a president who has a different theory of governing and is taking action at an alarming and unprecedented speed. And that in and of itself, let's not even talk about for a moment what he's doing. That kind of change is daunting, and change is scary in general. So right there, I think a lot of people are just worried. And then when you see all of the actions he's taking, it really cuts at some of the core things that we really pride ourselves in Massachusetts and how we take care of our own people. I will just say, so I was on last night listening to Congressman Lynch, had a town hall meeting by Zoom, and he gave a really good sort of overview of the things that he's doing, and I would encourage people to watch it, just to hear from him more directly. But what I took away from it and what made me feel better was that our federal delegation, and Congressman Lynch in particular, he's our congressman here, really is on it. And they're thinking very strategically about who they have to partner with across the aisle, who they can bring across the aisle, and how they can come to the center and really do the work that needs to be done. And he has positioned himself on some big committees because he does have seniority to really be front and center. Obviously, he's in the minority party now, but to be very present and to watch and to be able to fight for the things that we need and to oppose the things that are going to really be truly harmful. And he gives some interesting statistics about the various initiatives that have come out. They've already filed like 80 lawsuits, and he was really talking about how we have to be vigilant. We just have to stay true to who we are, and we just have to stand up for the things that matter to us. And that matter to the people in Massachusetts. And I think that's what they're doing. There's a lot of money at stake here. And I think people, everyone, it's one thing to say, let's just get rid of Medicare. Well, a lot of Medicare money is spent on the elderly, on veterans, on people with disabilities. I mean, when you really start to think about how we spend that money, and Massachusetts has been very adept. And that's a 50-cent match, right? So we spend 50 cents, they spend 50 cents,
right.
And that's what we use to really broaden our reach in terms of caring for people in our community.
So how much,
it's important.
If you could just make a declarative sentence here, how much that happens at the federal level affects the funding of the state level programs?
Oh, it's pretty significant.
Okay.
I read, there was an article, I think in, whether it was the Globe or, I'm not sure exactly where I saw it, but it's something like $9 billion just when you're talking about that program alone. So there's...
Comes from federal to the state of Massachusetts.
And that's just one, Health and Human Services, that's just one piece. So the money is actually substantial.
And the bottom line, everything costs money.
Everything costs
everything
money.
To do anything costs money.
Right.
So
we aggregate our wealth.
Yeah.
And then we put it to important public purpose.
Right.
And you can debate that. I'm not trying to be inflammatory here, but that is what we do, and it's pretty significant. I mean, one of the things that happened was just sometimes programs end, and we did free. I'm sorry, the word's leaving my mind. Free food, free lunch at schools. So that was something we did during the pandemic. The program ended with the end of the pandemic, and Massachusetts saw such great positive results from that. We committed to doing that.
Right.
Those are the kinds of programs that could end up going away as it's a real, it's going to be a tight budget anyway. If we start losing big chunks of federal funding, it's really going to be a concern.
Right. And I think it does need to be said that there is obviously in every budget, in every government entity, in every business, in every household, there are budgets that you can tighten. There's things you can say, hey, do we really need that? We got to prioritize things. So while this seems to be a bit dramatic of what's going on at the federal level, I think a lot, to your point, lawsuits will come up, and there will be some. I think the pendulum will swing back a little bit more towards the middle. It usually does. Yes. Because that's the way we're built. That's the way we're built. Exactly. That's the way we're built. If the rubber band, we stretch it too hard, it's going to come back. Well, or it's going to break.
And think about it. I mean, really, what is politics? It's about the art of negotiations, right? And,
exactly.
And compromise.
Exactly.
And I think that's where we're really trying to get. Well, we'll see. I mean, I can't prognosticate on that one. Yeah. But I will just say that Congressman Lynch, gave a very interesting report yesterday, and he's being strategic. And the other congressman that represents our district is Bill Keating, and I haven't been able to attend any of his things, but recently. But I mean, that we know Bill Keating for years, and he's the same way. So Third Plymouth is very lucky in that we have. Two seasoned, experienced senior congressmen who are really looking out for us.
Yep. And bottom line, take a deep breath.
Well, I think the other thing is let's not be distracted. So most people interact with government at the municipal
Local
level.
Sure, absolutely.
And so,
yeah.
I think the other piece is to not be distracted. Pay attention, stand up for what we need to stand up for. Pat Granahan that has the wonderful standouts at the post office? I think there's one today, as a matter of, maybe tomorrow is Wednesday. And so, like, take action where you can.
Sure.
But stay focused and don't let it distract, because I think that's the other important thing is we need to be true to ourselves and do the work here,
right,
and not let it distract us.
Absolutely. And we'll chat more about this, I'm sure, next time we're
I'm
together.
sure.
There'll be things that happen. The polar plunge.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
The Nantasket Beach
Oh my
polar
gosh.
plunge for Special Olympics.
So Special Olympics has a wonderful chapter down here on the South Shore.
Yeah.
And probably for 25 plus years, they have done a polar plunge. And this year was their most successful. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say how much they raised, but it's the most that they've raised in the history of doing this. And it was such a wonderful, all the families and the communities, Hingham, Hull, Cohasset, and they do it at the Nantasket Beach Reservation.
Yeah.
DCR was very welcoming. The town of Hull was very welcoming. And even though it was a bitter cold day, and I think they are crazy, it was freezing for a reason, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
it was
wonderful.
really fun. It was
that's
really
an
nice.
annual event.
And it supports the Special Olympics, which is obviously an issue near and dear.
Yeah.
And so it was just really great to come out and to help them celebrate all of this community spirit and the charitable giving. It was really great.
Okay, so how can people get in touch with you if they want to, and they don't just get in touch with you about filing bills. They get in touch with you about, you name it, they call you for it.
So constituent services is absolutely the bread and butter of a state representative.
Yep.
So if it occurs to you to call us and you have a question about how to navigate a state agency or access services or a policy matter or just like anything across the board, please do reach out. Please do reach out to us. Our email is joan.meschino@mahouse.gov. The phone number is 617-722-2092. Don't worry, you're not bothering us. I have wonderful staff, Jane and Harrison, who answer the phone, read the email, and really jump to the constituent services first. We always prioritize that. But we do get a tremendous amount of emails. So forgive me if I'm not responding personally to it. We do get a tremendous amount, but that speaks to the engagement.
Sure.
And I do actually read it all. And so it's really nice to know what the themes are.
The people, you will point them in the direction of where they should go.
We connect. We have great relationships both on the local level and on the federal level, and we'll help guide you where if we can't help you. And every once in a while, there's a problem we just can't solve. Government can't solve every problem.
No, it can't.
but at least if you call our office, someone's sympathetic.
And do you have scheduled office hours?
I do. I actually every Monday I am somewhere in the district, and I rotate between the communities, and sometimes it's the senior center, sometimes it's the library, Linden Ponds, and people are welcome to drop in and chat and talk. And then you're also welcome to schedule time either with me or my staff by phone, by Zoom, coffee in the district. We really try to do that on Mondays. If that doesn't work, just call. We'll figure something else out. But and remember, if you've sent an email and you don't get an immediate response, call the office. Because we do receive a tremendous amount.
You get a lot. Okay, great. So this has been wonderful. This has been You the People with Rep. Joan Meschino. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next time.
Always delighted to be here.